Good afternoon. This is Tamara Price with Florida's Office of Early Learning, and I'd like to welcome you to the OEL Preschool Development Grant Statewide Initiatives webinar series. Today is the second part of a two-part series in which we will provide you with updates on the goals and progress of Florida's Preschool Development Grant projects. For today's agenda, we will have an overview of the Preschool Development Grant to give you some background from Courtney Willis, and then we will have presentation of our projects and initiatives, answer some questions for you, and then provide you with some contact information in which you can get in contact with the leads of these projects if you need additional information. There will be an information sheet that will provide additional information about all of the projects that we've presented in Webinar 1 and Webinar 2. That will be provided after this webinar. It may be another week before we get that online, but the PowerPoint for both webinars, along with the information sheets, will be available on OEL's website under the Preschool Development Grant. I would like to introduce you to Courtney Willis, who will do our Pdg overview.
Hey everybody, can you all see and hear us?
I can't see you, but I can definitely hear you.
You can't see me, but you can hear me. That's a good reminder to put my webcam on. Thank you, Tamara.
Yes, and we've got people in the chat box stating they can hear you.
I see that. All right, great. Well, thank you guys. We wanted to begin each of these webinars by providing you all with a short refresher on the Pdg grant. So as you know, in 2018, we applied for and received the first preschool development grant. We were able to receive $8.5 million for that initial year, and we're lucky enough to apply for the renewal grant. And we were one of 20 states to receive the grant. So we are receiving an additional $13.4 million each year for the next 3 years to continue to build upon the work. Next slide. Like all of our Pdg projects and all of your programs, we were impacted by COVID-19. We've had to pivot from our approach to many projects you'll be hearing about today, and even cancel some projects altogether, unfortunately. But we're hoping things will change and we can figure out how to move these projects into years 2 and 3 of the grant period. The goal of the grant is to support states in coordinating and aligning systems and services that already exist. So to enhance upon the work that you all are already doing. So we want to improve program quality, expand access to targeted professional development opportunities, facilitate better partnerships between programs and organizations, improve transitions from early care and education programs into elementary school, increase program operating and cost efficiencies, expand parental choices and involvement, ensure families are linked to the full range of services that they need and qualify for. And as mentioned, the goal of the grant is to strengthen, next slide please, strengthen Florida's early education and care system. We can't do this work alone. The Pdg project is guided by our State Advisory Council, who among those are our partners that are responsible for the development and enhancement of Florida's system of high quality early childhood care and education programs. We want to ensure statewide coordination, alignment, and collaboration among partners such as School Readiness, Head Start, IDEA, Health, Mental Health Services, pre-kindergarten programs, and many, many more partners. And since we have a lot to get through, I'm going to pass it back to Tamara so she can get the project overview started.
Okay, so if you missed webinar number 1, the topics that we covered was family supports, inclusion, social, emotional, and mental health. As I said earlier, that PowerPoint is available on OEL's website. Today, we're going to be focusing on professional development and system enhancements. For the purpose of this webinar is to talk about the goals of each of the projects, who the intended audience is and the stakeholders, talk about some time frames and activities, and what our expected or anticipated outcomes would be. On each one of the project presentations slides, at the very back of each initiative, you will see the project lead's name and the contact information, so that if you want additional information or you want to see how you can participate in these projects, you can reach out directly to them to get more information. Next slide. So who you'll be hearing from under the professional development topic, curricula implementation will be presented by Greg Alarelli from the School Readiness Department. Communities of practice expansion, the presenter is Monique Wilkinson from the School Readiness Department, along with professional development inventory and investment study. Coaching and Professional Development Task Force will be presented by Antrika Morgan from the School Readiness Department. Coaching, Inventory, and Analysis will be presented by Hope Colley. Stipend Support for Trauma-Informed Care, Dual Language Learners, Infant, Toddler, and Emergent and Early Literacy will be presented by Katie Dufford-Melendez from the School Readiness Department. Cross-Sector Referral Professional Development will be presented by Amber Gibbons with the Child Care Resource and Referral State Network. Transition to Kindergarten, 5 Pre-K-3 Regional Readiness Leadership Summits and Transition to Kindergarten Toolkit will be presented by Melinda Webster. Under System Enhancements, we will have another presentation on Transition to Kindergarten for Translation Services and Resources by Melinda Webster with the VPK Department. Provider Profile Enhancement to CARES by Antrika Morgan, along with PD Registry Enhancements for Core Comps, Career Pathways, Core Competencies, Career Pathway Professional Development, and Resource Updates, Career Planning Toolkit will all be presented by Antrika Morgan. Cost of Quality, Expand Study to Family Child Care Homes, and the Enhancements to Budget Calculator for Providers will be presented by Penny Norton, along with our automation piece for BP's 10 components and pyramid model. So without further ado, we're going to move into our first topic area, which is professional development, and I'll introduce you to Greg Alarelli with the School Readiness Department.
All right, hopefully you can see me and hear me now.
Yes, we can.
All right, well, good afternoon. This preschool development grant renewal is for curriculum implementation. The overarching goals for this project start at the basic level of increasing knowledge and skills for your ECE workforce and stretches into the more complicated aspect of attempting to measure fidelity or gauging the practitioner's ability to implement the curriculum. This grant allows for purchasing curriculum materials, curriculum training, follow-up monitoring, and technical assistance. In the actual grant proposal, we provided some guiding questions to help you in your local planning and decision making. We also included some specific questions about how the ELC will determine which curricula you will be supporting and what provider eligibility criteria you will be using. We also ask you how you will incorporate class scores into the participant eligibility criteria. You may find that your plan is more of a mixed methods approach, and that's fine. Just tell us how you came to that decision and what that plan is. We are expecting differing approaches from ELC to ELC, and that's okay as well. We know a few of you already have curriculum implementation trainings that you offer locally, and we also know that some of you have a lot of providers who are not only struggling to purchase new curricula, but are struggling to just to stay in business. So your proposals may look vastly different from ELC to ELC. And next slide, please. We wanted to thank the small group of ELCEDs. We really appreciate all the assistance you provided. Hopefully you can see that we did take your suggestions and recommendations into consideration. Let's talk about the timelines. The grant application was out on August 21st, and the due date for the application is September 25th. We know that many of you prefer, or in some cases are required to take these proposals to your board. So please know that whatever you submit by 9/25, that can be revised as necessary. So don't think that whatever you submit on there is what you have to stick with. You can come in and revise it if needed. The end date for the project is June 30th, 2021, so next June. The process for submitting the application is similar to the original PDG grant application. If you guys remember, you'll submit through SharePoint, Coalition Zone, the Coalition Document Exchange, and then what you would look for is the folder for PDGR, CURR, IMP, and that's just for curriculum implementation. It'll sit right below the old PDGR folder. You do not need to CC anyone. We have set up an alert system. So once the application is reviewed and approved, we will notify you. If you need any more information, my contact information is on there. I think most of you know how to get in touch with me. So shoot me an email, or you can chat with me on MS Teams as well. But if you have any questions, let me know. All right, thanks, Tamara.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Greg. So we're going to move on. Monique Wilkinson is our next presenter, and she'll be doing Communities of Practice Expansion and the Professional Development Inventory and Investment Study.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Communities of Practice Expansion Initiative is an opportunity to increase the capacity of those of you who are currently certified as Community of Practice Facilitators or are certified coaches to continue to support our early learning programs, particularly in the areas of trauma-informed care, adult-child interaction, and strengthened teaching practices. And the associated activities for this initiative are advanced training for current COP facilitators and community of practice sessions specifically for the certified coaches. Next slide, please. So our anticipated outcomes are clearly to increase the knowledge and skills of our COP facilitators and coaches and the early childhood educators that they serve, which will translate into improved program quality. And we are also looking to incorporate into the advanced training strategies and resources to increase the collaboration among the agencies and organizations that you all partner with in your communities that serve young children and their families and the programs. Next slide, please. So our stakeholders are our current certified coaches and COP facilitators, and also the Lastinger Center for Learning, who is going to be continuing the work that they began with us a few years ago. Our time frame for these activities are beginning hopefully as soon as possible in September and continuing through June 30th of next year. Next slide, please. So the advanced training for COP facilitators will be virtual. It will be 6 hours per day, but the number of days is still to be determined. And the COP session specifically for coaches to help you have your own opportunities to do reflective practice and build your collaboration and improve your own coaching practices. That's going to be 1 to 2 hours per session as a normal COP session, and the number of sessions is again to be determined. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at the address on the screen. And then we can jump right into the next initiative, which is the Professional Development Inventory and Investment Study. The purpose is to engage a contractor to do, as it says, a review and an independent assessment of all the publicly funded professional development that's offered throughout the state of Florida. Anything that's being funded through CCDF monies is something that they're going to take a look at, and the purpose or the outcomes of that are going to be to inform the creation of a statewide system to help OEL and DOE really understand what the current PD system looks like, what's being offered, and use that information to streamline and improve the professional development that's being offered and the knowledge and skills of our workforce. Next slide, please. So our stakeholders are the coalition professional development staff, the trainers, the PD managers, etc. We are still trying to engage a contractor in this. We're still trying to identify a vendor. So we hope to get started next month, and the project will run again through June 30th of next year. Next slide, please. The time commitment for the program, we anticipate that the study itself is going to take between 6 and 9 months, but the time commitment for coalitions, we expect to be quite minimal. The vendor or the contractor will be contacting the professional development staff at each coalition to get the information about the trainings that you offer or have offered in the past. And so we're, again, expecting that time commitment to be quite minimal and limited to the PD staff. If you have any questions about this initiative, please feel free to contact me or Tamara Price at the addresses on your screen. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Monique. Our next topic is coaching and professional development task force. Both of those initiatives will be presented by Antrika Morgan.
Good afternoon. So coaching recertification, all of this is building on the work completed within the 2019 Preschool Development Grant. And the purpose of this work is to support certified coaches in maintaining their knowledge and skills and providing coaching services to the early education workforce. And what we're contracting with the vendor to do is to recertify the cadre of coaches that we have already certified out there. So we have over 300 coaches that have previously been certified on certain models out there. And so we need those coaches to be recertified to ensure that their coaching skills are still up to par and are fresh and are valid. The anticipated outcomes is to increase the knowledge and skills of the early childhood professionals and to increase the number of hours of professional development completed by the early childhood professionals. Next slide, please. Another anticipated outcome is to increase the number of people trained to provide responsive technical assistance and coaching. So the stakeholders are the ELC staff currently certified through the UF Lassinger Center. Next slide. And then our activities and timeframes are still under development. We're still working through the process of the scope of work and getting the contracts finalized. We hope to have this work completed starting in September and completed by June 30th of 2021. And the time commitment and training for this process is still under development. If you have any questions in regards to this project, you can reach out to me, Antrika Morgan, through my email, and I'm also available through Microsoft Teams. The coaching best practices and recommendation is also a part of this. And the purpose of that is to maximize the impact of coaches' time within early childhood education. So what we're hoping to do with that is for the contractor to develop recommendations based on research and best practices for implementing quality coaching practices in local communities based on caseload, frequency, dosage. And we really want them to do this in order to increase the knowledge and skills of the early childhood professionals and ensure that ultimately, once all of this is done, the ultimate goal is to improve child outcomes. Next slide, please. The stakeholders for this is the UF Lassinger Center, ELC staff currently certified through UF Lassinger, as well as the ECE workforce. The activities and time frame is still under development. And again, we're hoping to begin this work in September of this year, and we're hoping to complete it with around June 30th of 2021. Again, if you have any questions in regards to this project, you can reach out to me through my email address that is on the screen. And I'm available through Microsoft Teams as well. Next slide. So the Professional Development Task Force. Again, this is built off of the work from last PDG work. And the Professional Development Task Force is built on the work of the Professional Development Steering Committee. And the PD Steering Committee / Task Force is an identified group to support professional development work in Florida. And this group is a group of stakeholders that represents a full diversity of early childhood professional development interests in the state of Florida, particularly one that includes providers from a variety of settings that informs the development of a unified early childhood professional development system. So this group really includes members from professional provider associations, higher education institutes, early learning coalitions, training organizations, Head Start, state departments. All of them are professional and experts in their own right in early care and education professional development. That is who the task force is comprised of. The purpose of this initiative is for them to identify criteria for approving competency-based stackable credentials / specializations. And then once the specializations are approved by the Office of Early Learning, they will be recognized in the Florida Early Care and Education Professional Development Registry. Next slide. So the anticipated outcomes of this work is for recommendations for business rules and procedures for improving coordination across existing professional development opportunities in the field, where they're going to make sure that it's aligned to professional development, early learning standards, identifying and implementing new and formal specializations, addressing articulation agreements, aligning credentials with wage supports. They're also going to be looking to adopt the Florida standards and key competencies that they revised last year, as well as identification of criteria for approving the competency-based stackable credentials, which was the purpose that we went over on the last slide. Next slide, please. So the stakeholders are the agency partners, state colleges and universities, ECE staff, and ECE workforce. And the activities and time frame, again, are still under development. The anticipated time frame is September of this year through June 30th of 2021. And if you have any questions regarding this, you can reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Antrika. All right, so before we move on to coach inventory and analysis, I just want to just encourage, if you have questions, we will have a question and answer session at the end. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat box. We will either answer them in the chat or we will answer them during our question and answer time. So Hope Colley is with the VPK department, and she is going to present the coach inventory and analysis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Tamara. We are very excited about what's happening in Florida when it comes to coaching, and this effort is to enhance what's occurring at the coalitions in our school districts, and an effort to maximize the support that we provide to you all, as well as resources and professional development. So this coaching inventory and analysis will allow us to look at coaching across the state of Florida when it comes to our early childhood environments. We are looking to provide a very comprehensive and complete collection of data. We will look at the quality of the coaches, how they were trained, who trained them, are they still trained? We're going to look at the quantity, how many coaches are out there that are serving our early childhood educators, and then what their goals are and what their responsibilities and roles are as they serve teachers and centers in your areas. So we're super excited about this project and look forward to that complete analysis and collection of the data. Next slide. Our outcomes, as I mentioned, will result in the analysis of that data. It will look at how we can physically support, physically and fiscally support our coalitions and other partners across the state. We'll look at professional development, any enhancements that we need to make to support you all, as well as how this data is related to learning, to coaches, families, centers, and schools. Our stakeholders obviously are the coaches, but also our coalitions and other partners across the state, both as well as school districts. Next slide. And this project is under development with an anticipated rollout with a vendor in September. And we anticipate having that data collection completed and analyzed by June 30th. This project will involve a very in-depth analysis, and we're excited about that. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to assist you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hope. Our next presenter is Katie Dufford-Melendez, and she will be providing you with a presentation on our stipend support for trauma-informed care, dual language learners, infant toddler, and emergent and early literacy.
It's a lot.
It
Hello,
is.
friends. This particular work is intended to encourage early childhood educators to continue their education by providing stipends for completed professional development courses. The work is divided into two different pieces. The professional development courses are on focal topics, as Tamara just said, trauma-informed care, infants and toddlers, dual language learners, which is always a tongue twister to me, emergency literacy, and serving children with special needs. The second piece of the work relates to BPK and their work with the REL in the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten language and vocabulary training, project training. This year, the stipends will be focusing on those participants in the universal strand, and early next year, they will also incorporate those in the targeted strand. We're granting the work and trying to work with the Panhandle Area Educational Consortium. They are finalizing a lot of the details in this and working on the application process and the project plan, but once that is out, they will provide that application with a list of eligible courses, the number of allowable courses per person for the stipend, and the amount in each stipend for each course. Overall, kind of the upshot of that is each person will be eligible for up to $225. Next slide, please. Oh, right there. The anticipated outcomes is to increase the knowledge and skills of early childhood professionals, to increase the number of hours of professional development completed by early childhood professionals, to increase the number of people trained to provide responsive technical assistance coaching, to increase the numbers of early childhood education professionals holding specializations, credentials, and degrees, and to improve child outcomes. Next slide, please. Stakeholders include ELC staff, leaders, coaches, early childhood educators, and certified COP facilitators. And each class duration is dependent on the actual course that the applicant takes. However, the stipend grant is anticipated to start in September and will be available through June. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Katie. Our next presenter will be Amber Gibbons. She will be doing the cross-sector referral professional development. You will not have a video for this presentation.
Hey, good afternoon. We've worked with the UF Lassinger Center for Learning to develop these 5 web-based modules that will support the training of child care resource and referral agency specialists cross-sector. Modules 1 and 2 are designed for our CCR and R specialists. Modules 3 through 5 are designed for referral agency specialists. Next slide. The 5 web-based training modules will be housed in a centralized location, which will include the CCR&R specialist evaluation that will count towards their certification requirement. Piloting of the modules will take place in the fall of 2020 with staff from diverse referral agencies. Invitations to participate in the pilot will come from our office in collaboration with the UF Lassiter Center for Learning. Modules will be improved upon based on the pilot feedback and will be launched to serve 500 referral specialists to strengthen the cross-sector referral system across all entities that connect the most vulnerable families throughout the state to services. Biannual community and regional planning meetings will be held to meet and share best practices to explore ways we can increase coordination. Invitations to participate in these meetings will come from our office in collaboration with the UF Lassiter Center. Next slide. Our stakeholders include the Office of Early Learning, the UF Lassiter Center, Early Learning Coalition, staff, specifically our CCR&R coordinators and specialists, and other referral agency specialists. Our activities and time frame. The piloting of the 5 web-based training modules will take place in the fall of 2020, and our tentative go live with the 5 web-based modules will be 2021. Next slide, please. The time commitment for the trainings, each web-based module is self-paced. Each module is about 2 hours worth of content, so it will vary per specialist. And if you have any questions or concerns, you may email me at my email on screen. I'm also available on Microsoft Teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Our next 2 presentations will be done by Melinda Webster. They're for the Transition to Kindergarten 5 Pre-K Regional Readiness Summits and the Transition to Kindergarten Toolkit.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to share some information regarding how PDG will be supporting some transition to kindergarten activities this year and next. So over the last 2 or 3 years, the Office of Early Learning, in collaboration with the Children's Forum, provided many transition to kindergarten summits regionally around the state, and many of you participating today may have had the opportunity to attend one of those summits. The purpose of those summits was to bring together districts, coalitions, providers, schools, teachers, community partners to come together to talk about best practices with regard to supporting children's successful transition from a pre-K setting to kindergarten, and also to plan for how districts and coalitions could help support those efforts. So these pre-K through grade 3 Regional Readiness Leadership Summits, sponsored by the PDG funding, is a continuation of that transition to K work regionally. The purpose of these summits will be to, again, provide opportunities to facilitate group discussions, to provide opportunities for districts, coalitions, that same audience, as well as community partnerships, to talk about actions that have taken place thus far regarding transition to K, and initiatives that have been successful, and planning on how to future support to ensure that we have ready schools, ready families, ready children, and ready communities. Again, to support children's successful transitions into kindergarten for success in that year as well as beyond. We also will be working on a transition to kindergarten toolkit, which I'll share a little bit more of information about in just a moment. Next slide. So these summits, as I mentioned, will be a continuation of previous work. So we're going to expand the focus of these summits from pre-K actually to grade 3, with also a literacy focus to, again, plan, learn about, network regarding successful practices for children to be successful in kindergarten and beyond, and how our efforts can align with each other and learn best practices. So the stakeholders for these summits will be the Early Learning Coalitions, school district staff, community partners, and when I mention community partners, some examples would be the AELC, Head Start, Children's Forum, and many others. Okay, next slide. The time frame for these summits will be fall 2020. We're in that planning process right now. And if you have any questions or interested in this project, please feel free to reach out to me, Melinda Webster, and my contact information is located there on the slide. Okay, next slide. Another project that PDG will be helping us bring to fruition regarding transition to K is a toolkit. We already have a transition to kindergarten website on the Office of Early Learning webpage, and that website has been a culmination of work over the last couple years to gather resources, again, best practices, not only national resources, but resources that have been developed here within Florida based upon best practices and some successful initiatives that local districts and coalitions have implemented. So this will be an extension of that work, and this Transition to Kindergarten Toolkit will provide additional resources to all stakeholders. That would include providers, parents, families, children. I would extend that to also add districts, early learning coalitions. And the purpose of this toolkit is to provide templates for social media postings, event tips, suggestions, forms, documents, printable marketing templates, and more to provide some real hands-on resources that districts and coalitions could modify and personalize for their particular community to help promote successful practices for schools, families, and children as well. Next slide. The stakeholders for this particular project will include the Early Learning Coalition, school district staff, community partners, and our time frame, we're looking between now and January 2020 in order to have this toolkit available. We're very excited about this as being a new resource to help support districts and coalitions. Okay, next slide.
Thank you so much, Melinda. Keep your video on if you don't mind. We are going to move into our next topic area, which is system enhancements. And Melinda Webster is going to start us off with the translation services and resources. To help ensure access for families and other stakeholders to transition to kindergarten resources and services, some of the PDG funding will be utilized to translate resources that are existing as well as some that we are currently in production for. This project will develop, enhance, and refine resources for districts, providers, and families. And again, to have those translations available into multiple languages so that there is better access and more availability for those resources to impact our families. I would also add that this funding will also allow us to translate the early learning and developmental standards website that is currently on our OEL website. And our standards webpage has many resources as well as the standards themselves. And so we're happy that we'll be able to utilize this project to translate that website
into Spanish to, again, help promote accessibility. Okay, next slide, please. Again, anticipated outcomes is to increase accessibility available to educators and families. The stakeholders will be all district, ELC, early childhood staff, as well as families. Our time frame is working now, ongoing throughout the school year. And again, if there are any questions or any interest in providing input on any of these projects, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is posted there on the screen. Thank you.
And thank you, Melinda. So our next 4 topic areas: provider profile enhancement tiers, the PD registry enhancements, the core competencies and career pathway professional development and resource updates, and the career planning toolkit will all be presented by, oh, wait a minute. Monique, am I wrong? So you're doing the PD registry enhancements. Okay, so I'm wrong. So it's not all of them going to Antrika. So we are going to bring back Monique to do the provider profile enhancement to CARES.
Yes, ma'am. So this project is an expansion on the CARES enhancements that began during the first round of PDG funding, and it dovetails quite nicely with the professional development task force work around developing criteria for specializations. The provider profile enhancements to CARES will track actual enrollment that will help inform our cost of quality refinements, and it's also going to capture center or program staff, their care level, and the highest level of education to inform our workforce study. And the anticipated outcomes are that the enhanced registry and training system will calculate and display teacher specializations and provider badges, which we hope will translate into a more skilled early childhood workforce. And what more about the badges is that when a certain number or a certain percentage of a child care program's staff complete a specialization, a badge will be generated that will be displayed on the provider's profile in the CARES system. Next slide. Okay, now here we are. So the stakeholders are DCF, who is doing this work for us, the early childhood workforce, and of course families. Having that that badge displayed on a center's profile will really empower families to make more informed choices about care for their children. The work on this has already started, and we anticipate it being finished by the end of this year. And if you have any questions about this, you can contact me at the email address below, or I am also available through Microsoft Teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. And so now we're going to move on to our presenter, Antrika Morgan. We're going to bring her back to present on the next 3 subtopics.
Thank you, Tamara. So registry enhancements for core comps is the purpose of this initiative is the enhancements to the PD registry reflecting changes made to core competencies and career pathway. In our PD task force work that we talked about in the first round of PDG, the task force worked on revising the core competencies as well as the career pathway. And inside of the registry's role is to track the achievements and the progression that the ECE workforce makes on the career pathway, and that work tracks how the core competencies are embedded in the skills and the training within those certificates, credentials, and degrees. And so if you are revising the career pathway and you made revisions to the core competencies, you then have to make revisions to the data capture that houses the certificates, credentials, and degrees, and that tracks that work. So this initiative is making sure that we now update the data capture, the electronic solution that now captures those achievements and are able to keep up with the progression plans, et cetera, that houses that work. So the anticipated outcomes is for us to increase the number of ECE professionals holding specializations, credentials, and degrees, and so that the data capture can capture this accurately, now aligned to this new career pathway, and that we also have more skilled early care and education, early childhood workforce, and ultimately have improved child outcomes, because with the higher skilled workforce, then they're going to provide better services to our children, and then our children will have higher outcomes. Next slide, please. The stakeholders for this initiative is our partners at the Department of Children and Families, and then our ECE workforce. The activities and timeframe is still under development, and we are hoping to begin the work in September of 2020, and it should be completed by June 30th of 2021. If you have any questions in regards to this initiative, you can reach out to me at the contact information on the screen. Next slide, please. Core Competencies, Career Pathway, Professional Development, and Resources Updates. The purpose of this initiative is to make sure that we have updates to the existing trainings and resources to include coursework related to updated educator competencies and director competencies. So like I said before, we have the PD task force has revised the core competencies as well as the career pathway. And what they did was they aligned it to the work that has been done with NACCE's Power to the Profession collaboration. So they have used the national standards and research to make the revisions. And so the anticipated outcomes for this work, again, is to make sure that we have a more skilled early childhood workforce, which will ultimately result in improved outcomes for children. Next slide, please. The stakeholders for this work is our partners at the Department of Children and Families. We also work with our partners at the Florida Center for Interactive Media, which is at FCIM, and the ECE workforce. Our timeframes are still under development, hoping to begin in September of this year, and we should complete this work by June 30th of 2021. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at the contact information at the bottom of the screen. Next slide. So our career planning tool is a very neat tool and resource that I'm looking forward to being complete. I think it's going to be a resource that's going to be very helpful for our ECE workforce. And the purpose of this tool is to help the ECE professionals identify their career goals, document what they have already completed, and identify PD that will help them achieve their goals. And so this is going to be a resource that is going to dovetail in with the registry. So it'll be connected to the registry, and it'll be there in the registry system. So that is, the registry is hooked on to the Department of Children and Families Training Management System. So the registry and the Child Care Training Management System are basically the same system, and they work together. And so the ECE workforce is very familiar with this system. The career planning tool is going to be housed inside this system. And what it will do is they will be able to identify their career goals, document what they have already completed, and identify PD that will help them achieve their goals. It'll be a little more involved than just a training transcript that they're used to having now, and a little more in depth than the professional development plan that we have provided them with, where they can pick what's next. It's a little deeper than that, and they'll be able to have some options and some tools that they can click on that's going to help them to plan and be able to see what's next and be able to help them with their planning. So I'm very excited about this initiative, and I think they'll find it very useful as well. The anticipated outcomes for this one is to increase the number of ECE professionals holding specializations, credentials, and degrees, because they're going to be able to look to see which one is closer and within reach, help them with determining which one is better and more aligned to what they want to do next. And they're going to be able to check closer goals and then more long-term goals and be able to start working towards those. Another anticipated outcome, again, is to help create a more skilled early childhood workforce. And then if we have a more skilled early childhood workforce, ultimately we'll have improved child outcomes. Next slide, please. The tool is designed for the ECE workforce, and we're working with our partners at the Department of Children and Families. This activity is still under development. We hope to start in September of this year, and we should be complete by June 30th of 2021. The resource to use for career planning is up to the end user. So there is no time commitment, end date, or start date. Whenever the educator decides, I want to work on this certificate, this specialization, this degree, it's up to them. So the time commitment is up to them. If you have any questions in regards to the career planning tool, please reach out to me by email, or you can reach me through Microsoft Teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Antrika. So our next presenter is Penny Norton. She will do a presentation on cost of quality and the expansion to the family child care homes and the enhancements to the budget calculator, along with automation. Hey, Penny.
Thanks, Tamara. Hi, this is Penny Norton, and I am the project lead for the cost of quality study for family child care homes and its related activity, the cost of quality calculator for family child care homes. This project is a continuation of work that was started with the Pdg 19, in that there was a study done on the cost of quality for child care facilities, and a calculator was developed. And so this work continues on, but now closely examining family child care homes. Most of you are aware that in Florida, rates, the basic reimbursement rates for child care providers for child care slots in our state is, and also with the depressed market, it makes it very difficult to tell what the actual cost of quality is for our providers. And so this study will take a look to those rates, and will seek to equalize those payments throughout our state, and particularly as the counties individually are looked at, with an effort towards making sure that we have access to quality providers for all of the children in Florida. You can see the anticipated outcomes there are to strengthen the quality so that we can examine the family child care home providers and know more about the nature of those providers, with an ultimate goal of correcting the payment rate and providing quality aligned incentives to make sure that we are producing quality centers for our children. Next slide, please. The stakeholders for this project, as you can imagine, are family child care home providers, and also anybody who's a policy or decision maker who's interested in seeing the rates across our state be more equitable. So we're happy to say that we have issued a PO for this work. It is with the University of Florida Lassinger Center. That PO was issued just earlier this month, so we've got a start date, and we're happy about that. The end date for the project for the study is June the 30th of 2021. And we expect, as part of the study that's completed, is that we'll actually have a design, part of the study will be a phase-in plan for improving the rates around our state. So we're happy to be able to talk about that and inform policy and decision making. The time commitment for that is there's nothing from the ELC, although the subcontractor from UF may need some assistance if in potentially identifying family child care home providers to participate in focus groups and things like that. But other than that, there is nothing that will be required from the coalition at this point. So you can contact me there. I'm also available on Microsoft Teams as our other colleagues are. If you would go to the next slide. Okay. Part of this, the cost of quality study then is to design a calculator tool. This tool will reside in the current quality performance system, which, as you know, right now is for school readiness providers. That's where they go to register for program assessments. And I'll talk some more about that in a few more slides. But excuse me, the cost of quality calculator tool is a way for family child care home providers to really examine their business model and as such as a business, and it gives them a way to examine their income and their expenses. So we hope to gather a lot of data from the use of the cost of quality calculator tool, and we'll be able to share that with decision makers around the state. So if you would go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Again, just helping that with the anticipated outcome, just giving providers, family child care home providers, a way to look at their income and their expenses such as licensing fees, a mortgage, personnel costs, which we know is a big one usually, maybe a paycheck for themselves as a family child care home provider. All kinds of repairs, insurance, all that kind of stuff. And then looking towards income, which sources of income do they have? On top of base reimbursement rates, maybe cost of quality could be something that would benefit them. And they can examine how their class scores and the differential that they receive for that, as well as child assessment, how that plays into their actual business operations. And again, we want to use that data to assist us in informing the decision making of our policymakers. Our stakeholders for that, as you can see, again, family child care home providers, obviously, provider association for them will be very probably interested in their rates for their providers. And of course, the children and families who will benefit from the provision of quality services from those family child care home providers. If you would go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The activities in the time frame for this, this calculator is also rolled up into the purchase order with UF. So the time frame is the same. It started August the 8th and it will end June the 30th of 2000. That says 22. It should be 21. There's no time commitment from the ELCs. The only thing that will be there is a recorded webinar that if we would ask that the coalitions either provide a link to our webpage where it will be posted, or that they would share that recording on their own website. And that recorded training for providers on how to use the cost of quality tool will be designed and recorded by the University of Florida. And if you have questions about the cost of quality, either the study or the calculator tool, you can contact me at my the email address there at the bottom of your screen. And then the next slides are mine as well. So we have a lot of quality tools as a result of the PDG work, both PDGR and PDG 19. And so what better place to put them than into the quality performance system? And so this slide is about the automation of those tools, the B piece, which is the best practices in inclusive early childhood environments, the 10 components of quality infant and toddler care from FSU, and the pyramid model from the USF. So we decided that a natural place to put all of these quality tools would be in the quality performance system itself. So that the benefit would be that any users of the system would go there and would be able to have one login and then access each of these applications. The system itself, and I have to say this, is that the system itself will be redesigned during the course of the next year to allow for the adding on of additional software applications as maybe they become warranted through other initiatives and things like that, so that we can add them on as independent applications in the system. But the purpose of this project through PDGR is to actually automate these tools, make them more user-friendly, be able to aggregate data, remove the paper and pencil kind of tasks that's in record keeping that's involved, because they'll all be located in one place with one login. And the goal, the ultimate goal for that or outcome is hopefully that by making these tools more widely available, they will be more used frequently, and then hopefully that will improve child's outcomes in their environments. Next slide, please. Excuse me. The stakeholders for this project are all of the children, all providers and the children and families in the state of Florida, multiple statewide agencies. Those who have been trained to use these tools will have a central place to go. The tools will be automated. It's not going to be that you can just go in and download them. You're going to actually be able to go in and do data entry in there. And one part of the QPS that I didn't mention is currently, those of you at the coalition level anyway know that the system was designed for school readiness providers, and that's currently who exists there. But through a central repository, the system will be able to pull from a database of providers of all types of funding sources. So Head Start, Early Head Start, Migrant Head Start, VPK, private pay, school districts will all have access at their level, because you have to be trained on the 10 components in the pyramid model. And so we think that's going to make these very widely available, and super excited about that. The activities and time frame, we don't have a PO issued yet, but we're expecting it very soon. The end date is June the 30th, 2021. So we'll have all these tools automated in the QPS system. And the training will be minimal. It would be involving how do you use those tools once they're in the system. And again, if you have any questions about the cost of quality study, the calculator, or about the system enhancements and the automation of the B piece, the 10 components, or the pyramid model, you can reach me at the email address there or on Microsoft Teams. Thank you.
And thank you, Penny.
Thanks, Tamara.
So I just want to take the time just to say thank you to all of our presenters for Webinar 1 and Webinar 2 for the hard work that you all are doing to get these initiatives off the ground and implemented across our state, and for doing these very informative presentations. We're going to move into a question and answer time. We will start with our questions that have been put in the chat, and then I will unmute you if you've got your hand up if you want to ask a question of one of our panelists. Panelists, I will call your name, and if you can unmute, or if all of you guys can just unmute yourselves, and I'll go ahead and read the question out, and if you can answer that question, or if you cannot answer it, we will take these questions back, and they will be part of our Q&A document that we will be releasing in the next week or so that has all of the questions that were asked and answers, and we will do a follow-up on those ones that we can't answer directly. So Greg, I do have a couple of questions here that's curriculum related. The first one says, can the curriculum PDG be used to reimburse providers for chosen curricula since most have already purchased an approved curriculum? And Courtney, you may want to unmute as well for some of these. Greg, are you still on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, no, those purchases can't be before the grant period.
All right, I have another.
I was just going to let you know we had that discussion while the presentation was going on. So.
Okay. All right. And the next one is, if a provider has purchased their curriculum in the last month, will the curriculum grant be able to refund the purchase of the receipt if the receipt is provided?
And I think that I think the same answer
ahead,
applies there. We'll have to, I'll get with Courtney and Dave and we'll solidify the date that it would be good for. But typically that's going to be based on the approval of their proposal.
All right. Courtney, did you have something? Okay.
No, this is Courtney. Sorry, that's correct. Thanks, Greg.
All right. And then we've got some questions about coaching. Says, if you were working on getting your coaching certification when the pandemic hit, how does this affect their final coaching certificate? Meaning, since we were unable to go into the centers due to the pandemic. Oh, hold on a second. I'm kind of losing what this says. To the pandemic, once we do certify, when do we need to be recertified? Do you want me to read it again? It's pretty long.
Yes, please, read it again.
Okay, sure will. It says, if you are working on getting your coaching certification when the pandemic hit, how does this affect their final coaching certificate? Meaning, since we were unable to go into the centers due to the pandemic, once we do certify, when do we need to be recertified?
Okay, so that seems like it's a two-part question. The first part of the question, we know that UF is going to work with the individuals who were not able to complete the certification. Also know that we are working with UF on a virtual certification process. So because we're working with them on the virtual certification process, stay tuned on how hybrid may be able to happen on being able to complete the certification. So you're still going to be able to have a relationship with the coachee and be able to still have that coaching conversation that will still have to take place. What that looks like, and if it was going to be a phone coaching session or what have you, we do not know. But UF will be working with individuals on completing your coaching certification. So that's the first half. The second half of the question was in regards to recertification. Recertification is a process, is an initiative that is happening now. And we are, again, in the process of identifying and determining what recertification process is. So once that is determined in this initiative, that will be spelled out, and those individuals will have to abide by whatever that recertification criteria is. In the meantime, there was something that was called calibration for coaches that was highly recommended that everyone needed to do. And so if you were one of the coaches that was certified like 4 or 3 years ago and hadn't gone through a coaching calibration, then we would strongly recommend that you had gone through one of those coaching calibration sessions. But if you are concerned about any of that, you definitely either need to reach out to me and or Monique, me being Antrika, or Monique, and we could definitely troubleshoot this question and work with UF just to see exactly where you are and what we can do to help you.
All right, thank you. So the next question asks, are the stipends only for the early childhood education workforce? So the stipend initiative has 3 parts to it. There are stipends for community of practice certified facilitators. There are stipends for the early childhood educators, And then there are stipends related to the VPK REL Universal Strand. And so if you are a participant in that, there are stipends related to that. The next question says, how will this be displayed? And so Monique, this question came in when you were presenting on badges, but it says, how will this be displayed, and will the existing names on the pathways be updated, or do you need to go in and change it yourself?
Well, I can answer the first part of that question. The badges, the artwork or the graphics for the badges have already been finalized, and they're tiny little pictures that depict a specialization topic. And once the information is generated from the registry to trigger that badge to be added to that provider's profile, it will show up there. Regarding the second half of the question regarding changing the career pathways, I think Antrika is a better person to answer that question.
Antrika, would you like me to read the question again, the second part?
Yes, please.
Okay, it says on the pathways, hold on, how will this be displayed? And then it says, and will the existing names on the pathways be updated, or do you need to go in and change it yourself?
I'm sorry, could you read the whole thing again?
Sure. It says, how will this be displayed? And so they were speaking about the badges. And then it says, and will the existing names on the pathways be updated, or do you need to go in and change it yourself? So I'm assuming that this question is related to the career pathways being updated maybe for the career planning tool, and they're thinking that the names need to be updated. I'm not sure, but if it's unclear, we can just do an answer after we've discussed it and put it on the Q&A document.
Yeah, I'm not understanding the question.
Did you want to unmute Lisa Diggs and see if can you find her on the list? She's here. Lisa, did you want to ask your question directly?
Yes, thank you. What I meant was, if you were already a participant in the career pathways, do you need to update the information that's there yourself, or will that be an automatic generation of the information that's there? Would it just automatically update?
Oh, it will automatically update. So they,
Okay.
they understand, the Department of Children and Families and Jake, the contractor, they understand what tier you're currently in and what the new designations will be. And so, and what they're aligned to. And so it will automatically put you in what the previous ones are and what the new ones are, and what it correlates to. So it will do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, Monique, I have a couple of 10 components questions.
Okay.
Okay, it says, where and how can the 10 components training be taken, online or in person? That's the first one. And the second one's related to that, by the way. It says, what is the plan for resuming 10 components training? That webinar one talk.
Okay, so regarding the train the trainer that we addressed, that started last June. FSU is in the process of revising the train the trainer so that it can be delivered virtually. That had not already been developed, so that takes a little bit of time. So as soon as they have completed that process, we will be in touch with all of the coalitions. We'll put out information to all of our infant toddler specialists, but specifically we'll also contact the coalitions that had been scheduled to host the face-to-face sessions that are no longer taking place. And we will start the registration process in a similar way to what we did when we were doing face-to-face. Regarding the 10 components training, the virtual tool trainings that we talked about last week, those are, that contract is just about finalized, and as soon as everything is signed, sealed, and delivered, we will be advertising dates and times for those trainings.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Adia, can you see if you can find Janet Maxim? Janet, I'm not sure if I understand your question, so we're going to unmute you so that you can ask your question directly. We are working on it. Give us 1 second.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, Janet, you've been unmuted.
Okay, have I been unmuted? You guys can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on the first webinar, I was given some information about the equity, with the racial equity stuff, and I'm just not sure that it was touched today. Where the funding is.
So racial equity, we did present on that in our last webinar, so we did not present on that today. These were all separate projects. However, Dr. Lisette Levy or Antrika Morgan can provide you with additional information about our racial equity project if you want to reach out to them.
Okay, thank you. I do have her information, Lizette. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so we've got several questions in our chat about the, that's in response to the curriculum question that we had earlier. We're going to hold on to that so that there can be further conversation about that. There are no other questions in the chat box. So I am going to unmute Valerie Cato if you want to ask your question. It says I unmuted her, but it doesn't look like. Okay, it looks like she's self-muted. Uh-huh.
I see one Valerie Powell.
Cato.
How do you spell her?
All right, Valerie Cato, you are self-muted. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Just sent an unmute request.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next person, Susan Dixon. I have unmuted you. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, so we are going to move on and see if
she is.
Oh, okay. Do we have someone wanting to ask a question? All right, well, it doesn't look like we have any more hands raised and we don't have any more questions, so we are going to wrap up for today. A couple of reminders of what I talked about earlier in the beginning of our webinar. This PowerPoint for webinar 2 and the one for webinar 1 will both be posted on the OEL website under Preschool Development Grant. You can go to the drop down at the box and go to under Initiatives and then go to Preschool Development Grant, and then you'll be able to see those webinars. Webinar 1 is already there, that PowerPoint, and this one will be up probably tomorrow at the latest. And then we've got a question and answer document that we will pull together all the questions and the answers from webinar 1 and webinar 2, and we will create a question and answer document that we will also post under the Preschool Development Grant page on the OEL website. Is there anything? Oh, and the information sheets. So the information sheets are still being worked on. They are to provide additional information into all of our initiatives. And so those will just be a supplement to what you've heard today and last Thursday. And since we don't have any more questions, again, I just want to thank my panelists and also thank you all for joining us again for the second day of our webinar series. And also thank my partner, Adia Bradwell, for running the show and making all this happen. And you guys have a great rest of the day.